Welcome to the Kickstarters Phase 2 event today. It's great to see you. And as you know, this event is, the second and last part of the event that we did last time in December. And the objective is simple: that we want to connect to teams at startups that were not doing so well with other great startups that are hiring and want to work with people just like you. And before we begin, I just wanted to give you a bit of context because a lot of you would be here on Cutshort for the first time. So you might have, some confusion about what we are doing what we're trying to do here. So Cutshort is, a new professional platform. We're trying to make it easy for you to reach the people that you want. The picture in the middle is how your path to people typically looks like. So you find them on some platform, you connect to them on different platforms. They are consultants and all of that, in between. And we want to cut short your path so that you just reach the right people at the right time. Uh, the idea is simple. The background is, while social space or social networking needs have been solved by Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, the professional is not so easy. It is still painful. Uh, so you have multiple use cases within professionals and in professional space, and then within those use cases, there are multiple platforms that you need to fiddle around with and try to make things happen or connect with the people that you want. Cut short, is trying to simplify that by first attracting the right kind of community. And our community is really about passionate people who love what they do, who work at startups, who work at even product companies, want to build stuff, want to learn and grow in the career. That's the kind of community that we are trying to attract. And we understand your current intention. That's what we try to do. So if you are hiring, we understand what kind of people you want to hire. If you are looking for opportunities, then we do the reverse. And if you are just trying to connect with mentors or you're trying to connect with other people, we try to solve that as well. And then once we identify your intention, we use all the tools at our disposal, like the technology, the algorithms, and the design of the whole platform to make it easy for you to connect with the people. And we add a unique context to all of this stuff. We have some special events that we do. So this today is a special event that we're doing to solve a very concrete and very tangible problem in the ecosystem right now. And we hope that we will be able to get you some good connects today. Why this event? So going into this event and why we are doing this, the background is pretty well obvious now to most of you. Know that 2016 was not a great year for startups. A lot of them were shut down. A lot of them were not able to raise because of funding crunch. So we wrote an article on LinkedIn about that, and a lot of people wrote back and said that they want to make this make something make something happen so that we solve this problem. We had so many unsure founders, CXOs, team leads who were working at these startups but were not sure about what they should do next. So this is the idea, and this was a free initiative that we did. Today we have more than 500 professionals who are attending the event. These are, as I said, these are founders, CXOs, heads, leads in all areas, tech, marketing, sales, and so on, who are attending the event to connect with other people. Uh, and in terms of companies, we have more than 70 plus people who are hiring at their companies today. Some of the names are here. You will see more of them on the event platform that you're logged in right now. We also are pretty excited to have two hands-on entrepreneurs who have built their own startups, who have gone through very interesting, unique journeys in their career, and we invited them today to share their perspective and share their insights with you. Because one of the things that we want to do, using this event, is to create a better, more mature ecosystem for startups. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from these two people about how their experience has been, and really pick up some nuggets from them. At this event, so you are on the screen. I just wanted to break it down in terms of what you can do at this event. So I'll start from the bottom and go to the top. So at the bottom, you can see that you have attendees tab where we will show you all the attendees who are at this event today. You will be able to see a list of them, and you will be able to see and message them. You need to create a profile card before you can do that. Once you send a message to someone and show interest that you want to connect with them, they will get a notification, and if they say yes, and they say yes, they also want to meet you, I want to connect with you, you will get there will be one more tab called connected tab where you will be seeing all these people who have said yes to you, or you have said yes to. So you see all those people, you will be able to see their phone numbers, you will be able to see their profiles, social profiles, and you will be able to take the conversation forward. So this is the bottom part. In the middle section, we have Hangouts, which is where you are seeing it. YouTube live stream right now. So this Hangouts will have started now, and it will go for, like, we'll have two talks by by Neil and Apoorv, and then the Hangouts will end, but the event will continue. And I'll go through what will happen after the Hangout is done. On the top is a new initiative, a separate initiative that we are introducing today. It's called New Startup Showcase. So we saw at these events that we do, we get a lot of users, a lot of traffic, a lot of eyeballs. And this is a community of people who want to make things happen, who want to build their startups, who would be interested in knowing about new startups. And this is a space that we created to highlight some of the upcoming startups for free, because if you were aware, and I'm sure you are aware of that, if you want to get some eyeballs or get some exposure, for your startup, everything is paid, it's hard, and we want to build a better ecosystem by providing these opportunities for some other startups that can take benefit or take advantage of getting showcased here. So we selected of 4 of these startups today out of 35 applications that we got from the interested startups. Uh, this is a schedule which it looks like. So we have the Hangouts and the 2 talks. The event will go on until 11:45 p.m. tonight, after which you will not be able to reach out to the other participants, but you will be able to access your old or existing conversations uh, in the event page itself. So the event will still exist, will be archived on our platform, and you will be able to access your records after 11:45 p.m. tonight. So that's it. I'll before I open this up to the awesome speakers that we have today. This is our team that worked very hard on this event. We and we would love to get your feedback on how you find this. You want to connect with other people around you in the event. You can also we launched a new product called Cutshort channels, through using which you can connect with people, continue to stay in touch with them on Cutshort itself. So that was what I had, guys, and we are now ready to for the talks. So first to go will be Neil. I will let him introduce himself because he can do that better. And it will be a 15-minute talk. After that, we'll have 5 minutes of Q&A. If you have any questions for Neil, you can ask those in the chat, the broadcast chat window that you have on the event page, and we will pick some of those questions and we will ask him. And then you can also ask. We'll also have a Q&A for the joint two of you, or two of them, Apoorv and Neil, after the talks are over. All right. So Neil, can you hear me?
I can hear you. No problem.
All right. So let's get started. You can introduce yourself perhaps, and then you can start the talk.
All right, excellent. First, I just want to say thank you to the entire Cutshort team. Putting on an event of this scale, especially virtually, is incredibly difficult. And I've done enough demos and big events that I know things go wrong, but you keep it limited and you keep going. So congratulations, and I'm happy to be here. Hello to everyone. I know it's a little bit different that I can't see you in person, but I'm excited to know that everyone is there. Let me share my screen. 1 second.
So we have more than 100 viewers right now who are watching the stream.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. So let me know, because I think I lose everyone if you can see the deck, which you should. All set? You guys still there?
Yep.
All right, awesome. So as Nikunj mentioned, my name is Neil Jaglekar, and currently I'm the VP of Product at BrowserStack, where we're building the testing infrastructure for the internet. So no matter what type of testing you want to do for your product, we want you to run it on BrowserStack. At BrowserStack, I run the product and design team in India, and I also run the entire team in the US. So in my past, I kind of have a varied background. So I went to Stanford. At Stanford, I got kind of bit by the startup bug, which I'm sure a lot of you have. And so I started a technology company that was funded by Y Combinator, which is an incubator in the Bay Area, and some of tech's most famous investors. I also worked with one of the most famous US military generals. He's a man who commanded a set of troops, or a number of troops of about 100,000 people, which just still blows my mind. The third is I launched a hardware project that was funded on Kickstarter, and used it to go on Shark Tank, which is a show where you pitch investors on television on ABC. So that's that picture on the bottom right. And so I think another thing that's important to call it up front is that throughout sort of my entire journey, I've been helped by so many people. And so to try to do that, I've enjoyed helping people, and I advise quite a few companies, actually both in India and the US. So for this, because I know we have a limited amount of time, what I want to do is sort of take everything in my background and try to condense it down into 4 lessons that I've learned is sort of very important for how you might want to launch a startup or a business or join a startup. So let me go through them. The first one is that you need to solve real problems. And so what's critical here is that every single action you take is grounded in a very significant and important problem. Let me give you an example. So the technology company I started was called RealSurfer. And RealSurfer was a video platform that we built to essentially search for movie quotes. So you'd search for your favorite movie quote, you'd find that clip, and then you'd be able to share it with your friends. I was in college at the time, so this was a very real problem that me and my friends faced, because what we used to do is trade movie quotes constantly. The issue that we had was that although we knew everything about our own problem, it wasn't large enough at a scale-wise. Like, there weren't enough people that had that problem. So we had to actually adjust. So the switch that we made was actually to allow anyone who was watching any video to find their favorite part and send to someone. That change in sort of focus and that change sort of the scale or impact of our problem is what actually led us to Y Combinator. And so when we did Y Combinator, we also in parallel raised a pretty significant amount of investment to try to go tackle this problem. So, you know, though we started with a real problem, sort of we progressed to, I guess, an even more real problem that had, you know, a significant impact, and that is sort of what launched us, you know, towards building a product that a lot of people really loved. I think it's interesting, and it's no coincidence that Y Combinator's slogan overall is, you know, make something people want. So usually when you hear good advice from a lot of really smart people, at least smarter than you, you know, it's best to follow it.
Yeah.
The second one for me is be aggressive. And so one of my favorite quotes is fortune favors the bold. So I really believe you have to be aggressive to push ideas, get customers, and make things happen. But one thing that people forget that's important is that just because you're aggressive doesn't mean you're kind and respectful. Aggression is about, you know, having a very strong drive to get things done in a big way. So my example from here is when I went on Shark Tank. So the story was we were basically building a sleeping mask that functioned like an alarm clock that would wake you up with light instead of sound. And so we did a Kickstarter that was pretty successful. And during that Kickstarter, we were actually reached out by the Shark Tank team. And so at the time they wanted us to go on the show, we barely had a functioning prototype. Forget that we had a company, forget that we had a ton of masks, we barely had one that worked, you know? And so a lot of cases you might, you know, be a little bit afraid to go on such a public stage with that, you know, with that sort of product. But a part of being aggressive is being very bold. And so essentially what we decided to do was continue with the show. And sort of, you know, we thought that we would figure it out, and the trade-off of being exposed to, you know, 7 or 8 million people was definitely going to be worth it. There's also a subcomponent of this. So within the show itself, I'm not sure how many of you watch it, but within the show itself, so they basically invite you to Los Angeles to tape it. And they tape for about an hour, and they get cut into about a 6 or 7 minute segment. So of all the companies that go to get taped, only half actually make it to TV. So the other thing that we needed to do was figure out how to get on TV. And so essentially you have an introduction pitch that lasts 1 or 2 minutes. And so we had worked on our pitch for probably like a month and a half to make sure that we would deliver it well. But the week before, I read it again and I scrapped it. And the reason we scrapped it was that it sort of didn't put us in an obvious position to get aired. So I don't know if you guys actually saw this episode. It aired in India, I think about 4 or 5 months ago. But instead of wearing sort of normal clothes, we wore one-piece pajamas. And so the idea was, even though that we might look ridiculous, we really have, a lot of scientific foundation and everything sort of behind what we're doing. And so it was actually, and we spoke to the producers after, it was actually that decision that helped us make it on.
That's great.
The third one for me is, sorry?
Yeah, that's great.
Awesome. And I'm happy to answer any questions. We'll get to that.
Yep.
The third one is to be open. And for me, this is sort of good ideas can come from and will come from anywhere. And you need to be open to them, new ideas, new people, new cultures, new customers. And that's really the only way that you can build a great product and a great company. So my example here is I'm part of the World Economic Forum. And the World Economic Forum is an organization that's based in Geneva with a pretty bold mission to improve the state of the world. And so through the World Economic Forum, it actually allows me to travel and meet, change makers or people who want to start things in cities all over the world. For example, I just went to Japan about, 5 or 6 months ago and met with probably some of the most influential policymakers, to discuss how innovation could help potentially bring peace. And so I would say that Japanese policymakers are probably not the kinds of people that I normally, interact with. But, hearing their side from even some of the tech issues that I was facing and just having them sort of look at it from a fresh perspective, based on their experience, for them it was extra. They didn't have the same background. They didn't have the same culture. And frankly, we literally didn't speak the same language. And so, combining all of those things is actually, quite fascinating. Another example for the World Economic Forum is I used to lead the chapter for Silicon Valley. And so, it was really interesting for me so I could understand all of the visitors who came there and learn from them. So one thing that we sort of launched within Silicon Valley is, I don't know if you guys are aware of the concept of Lean In, but basically Sheryl Sandberg from Facebook has started a movement to sort of empower women and increase diversity in the workplace. And so what we tried to do was help them scale that concept to countries around the world. And so, I'm a firm believer in diversity of thought. And at BrowserStack, we feel the same way, which is why we have a great collection of people from all sorts of different backgrounds, genders, everything. And it's really, really critical to sort of, building the type of company or building the type of startup or product that you want to. And the last one for me, and possibly the most important, is be with the best. And so there's a pretty famous quote, I think it's from Drew Houston from Dropbox, that basically says, you're an average of the 5 people around you. And so if you think about it from that perspective, you'll spend a lot more time trying to figure out who those 5 people should be. So I've started 2 companies, and both times the founders were probably the smartest people that I knew. The first one, which was Real Surfer. So I met Christian, who was my co-founder when I was still at Stanford. And I found him, even though we studied the same thing, our attendance maybe in class wasn't super stellar. So we actually never met that way. But how I met him was actually, we lived in the same dorm. And his story about him was basically, he had figured out a way to work both at Microsoft and Google while studying at Stanford all at the same time. I still don't understand how he did that. And I could never, touch anything close to that. The second guy, the guy I started the product with, who ended up on Shark Tank, his name's Justin. And so Justin, while we were building the product, is a PhD at MIT, whose focus is optics. So basically what we tried to do, or what I tried to do was, I have a pretty strong background in product development. I have a pretty strong background, in marketing and sort of getting a business off the ground. But finding someone who is a technical expert to sort of, build the type of product that we wanted that had real value for someone was essential. And when you're finding your co-founder, which I'm sure you guys have heard a lot, is critically important, there are also other ways to sort of fill your knowledge gaps. So when we started Real Surfer, which going back was sort of the movie concept, I knew nothing about the movie industry. All I knew was that I like to watch movies. And so since we were targeting them to try to build a business around that, I knew we needed movie expertise. So the first person that we went after was this guy named Bill Fay. And Bill Fay was the guy who created pretty popular movies, 300 and The Hangover. And so a very, very and Independence Day, which is one of my favorite movies, and a very successful guy. And so what happened was I basically cold called him and kept cold calling him and emailing him until he would chat with me. And then he chatted with me, and then I would push him till he would meet with me. And after a while, I think I just sort of bothered him so much that he agreed to sort of help us and be one of our advisors. I have a similar story where sort of we had to figure out, again, we were still in college, so we didn't really know anything. We had to figure out how to try to build a technology business. And so the guy we actually targeted was still at Stanford at the time. And this guy's name was Anand Chandrasekaran. And you guys probably know Anand now because he was the chief product officer of Snapdeal. But back then, he was just a successful entrepreneur that had just sold his first company. And so we targeted him as well to sort of figure out, how to have him teach us and help fill in the gaps of our business. One other nice, byproduct of aligning yourself with amazing people is that they continue to do amazing things. So all of these people, we're all still friends, like we keep in touch, and they've all moved on to, pretty incredible feats in their own right, which is a nice benefit. So those are kind of the four major ones that I think are critical. But I will say that this is also very personal. So this is sort of advice that I give any startup founder that I talk to, or anyone who's thinking about joining a startup, is when you're making this kind of decision or you're trying to figure out what to do, you need to start by looking internally and see kind of what the 3 to 5 most important things are for you. And then you need to make sure that whatever product or business you're building, that they align with that. And sort of once you do that, it'll become more clear about, how you can build a business and what type of business you want to make. And I also want to make it clear that I'm happy to help anyone. Please reach out to me. My Twitter handle is in the slide that you're seeing right now. It's @NJCAR. And I'm happy to help and contribute, especially to the Indian ecosystem, sort of as much as I can. I don't know how I'm doing time-wise, but if I cut it short, it has time for more questions, which is probably good.
Okay, so questions are still coming in. I think people will mostly have questions in the end. So are you planning to stop by for like a post talk as well, or you have to leave or have some other work?
For the question session at the end?
So let me just check if there are any questions that have come in. But one thing, of course, one question that I have for you is, where do you see, what differences you see in the Valley ecosystem versus Indian ecosystem? And what do you think we need to do to create more successful startups out from India?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's two things about Silicon Valley that make it extremely special. First is there is sort of a culture of paying it forward. So this is kind of what I was talking to in the beginning, which is sort of, I've been lucky, extremely lucky to do some of the interesting things that I've done, but it's all been with significant help. I couldn't have leaped just coming out of school without someone who had been successful and can show me that that's the path that, you could potentially take. And being open to meeting with me when I really had no value for them, to just try to help because they'd sort of faced that before and they had someone who'd helped them before. The second one is I think having examples, like examples of success, like that help you sort of believe that you can achieve something. I think one of the things that I tell most entrepreneurs is sort of, thinking really, really big is a critical strategy. And it's a little bit difficult when you're unsure of yourself, you're unsure of your product, you probably don't have customers, like there's no real validation that what you're doing is working. But sort of like understanding that, it's possible for you to, achieve kind of what you see, whatever you deem success is, like those types of people. And the last one is sort of the attitude around failure. The famous Facebook sort of quote is, move fast and break things, which is basically the concept of launching quickly and iterating quickly. I think the mantra of failing fast is really, really important. And frankly, is something that, I have learned over the years as well, is that if you can use the least amount of resources or build the least amount of things to get the greatest amount of impact, that allows you to sort of focus your strategy, it helps you quite a bit. And also, failure is a very relative term. I would say I've had success and I've had failure. I've had both, and both have made me better. And sort of it hasn't, restricted my ability, but that's all a mindset. It's sort of just being relentless and knowing that. So I'll give you an example. When we were doing Real Surfer, we had to figure out how to get to the movie studios. And so what I used to do was actually cold call them and go visit them. And I didn't know anybody, and I'd literally just bang out on the doors until they let me in. And like, there's no, like, all of those conversations were failures, but I just wasn't going to let that happen until I figured out a way to actually get in, and we actually ended up, meeting all of them and trying to do deals with all of them. And so a lot of it's how you look at it. I know there's a long-winded answer. Hopefully I addressed some good points.
Yep. Yeah, so one question, a follow-up question on your first thing was that in the Valley, there's a culture of paying back, or there's a culture of helping each other. There's so many smart people around you. You hop into any Starbucks and you find so many good people. So the density of talent, or the density of people who are willing to help, is pretty good out there. So the question is, how can an Indian startup founder in India connect with these smart people? Twitter, of course, is one way, but the way Twitter is going, I'm not sure how long Twitter will go, and the kind of noise on Twitter, it's really becoming difficult to make a meaningful conversation with someone.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. First of all, there's smart people everywhere. I've been at BrowserStack now for about 9 months, and like, I know everyone holds Silicon Valley to extremely high standard, and granted, there are a lot of very intelligent, very successful people there, but there are just as many, if not even more, in India. It's just about sort of energizing this community to sort of, behave in a similar way. And this is not a problem that's, just with India. Like, every country or every city is trying to create that same sort of ecosystem, and the question is, how do you do it? I don't think there's an easy answer. I think I hit some of the points kind of in my answer a second ago, but being in India, you can absolutely rely on Indian entrepreneurs. Like, they've done it. Like, there's tons of very successful Indian startups and companies, and it's just a matter of, finding them and asking for help. And they may say no, which is a small failure, but if you're persistent enough, someone's going to say yes, and that's going to help you.
Okay. One question is from Aditya, who's asking, do you think startups that follow the Me Too approach improve competition, or do they just do not sustain in the long run?
That's interesting. I am generally not a fan of kind of the Me Too businesses, Uber for X, Uber for Y in general. If you're going to go down that strategy, there needs to be something uniquely defensible about either the industry you're going into, or something specific about the product that you're creating. So in general, it's a great idea. I think also, something that I've seen in Indian startups is that I think there needs to be more of a focus on a global audience. I know there's a lot of people in India, and so building India-specific products, could make sense if you have expertise in the local market, maybe something about logistics in India that's completely different from other countries in the world. But a lot of the startups that I meet, they want to build something that has appeal, mass appeal on a global scale, but they want to target in India, and that's always an extremely dangerous strategy.
Okay. One question from Shantanu is, during your journey, have you faced a situation where you thought, OMG, this is not going to work out? And then later on, you realize that that was the best decision you ever took?
That is a good question. So I face that just about every single day. Even when I was just preparing for this right now, putting the deck together and figuring out what I wanted to tell you, I probably had that thought cross my mind at least 5 or 10 times. And then you just do it. I think the biggest one for me was, I think Shark Tank was actually a pretty good example of this. But as I mentioned, we had a product that barely worked. It was, we had sold a lot, which was nice, which was sort of the pre-sales and some idea of Kickstarter. But even when they were taping and I was in front of the sharks and I was holding the mask, in my mind I was thinking, oh my God, I hope this works. I hope this works. This is my one shot. And it did. And I will tell you, even if it didn't, it would have still been okay. We would have figured out some way to explain it or some way to handle it and some way to move on, that I wouldn't have been worried about it. I try to have this little, even though I will have these oh my God moments, I think what I've seen over time is just that since your journey is such kind of a roller coaster, you try to even out the distribution as much as possible. And so even though I have OMG moments, I try not to overreact because you need to find solutions constantly.
Okay, so there's one question. I'm not sure if you have done this before or you have any insights into this, but the question is coming from a very, this is like a current affairs kind of thing right now happening in Indian startup system. Do you think registering a global consumer SaaS company in the US and having operational offices in India is better in terms of the valuations?
Porv, you want to take this one?
Yeah, so we actually have done the exact same thing. It's not a consumer SaaS, it's a enterprise SaaS startup that we have, but we are incorporated in the US as a Delaware C Corp, and we have a subsidiary in India. And we have in fact just raised a round in the Valley also. So with some investors who were India based. So I actually have a lot of data probably to answer the question. So I think, so there are two things, right? One, to register in the US or incorporate in the US or Singapore or any of these decisions that we take, it really needs to come from very, very sound logic because it is not easy. We missed one of our tax deadlines because as a CEO, you will always forget some of these things, and essentially incorporating with 2 different countries is always more painful. And it costed us $10,000, right? So all of this type of crap will also happen. So just make sure that you really, really know why you are incorporating in another country. For us, the answer was simple, that we had to sell to US customers and US-based customers, and that's primarily our major market. So we needed to be there. Another point is that if you do feel that you would want to raise definitely from US-based investors in early stages, so before Series C, Series D, then again, there is a lot of comfort if you are US-based. On the valuation point, I think valuation broadly definitely is different, slightly lower in India compared to what you can get in the Valley. But then it's a double-edged sword, right? When raising in the Valley is also not that easy. Someone, as an example, for someone like Neil, who's sort of been in Stanford or been in the ecosystem, it's still fairly easy when he goes and pitches to an investor because they can understand, they can actually connect with him, and that's true, right? And but if you randomly, if you go there and if you try to make them connect with what we are trying to build, the market, especially if it's a consumer SaaS, which and if the market is not primarily US and if they can't connect with you, it's a fairly hard sell. So and we can talk about it a little bit more probably later, but yeah, I think you need to really know the reasons.
Yeah, I think that was a good insight. I'm sure Apoorv has a wealth of information on all of this part. It's pretty much very relevant to what he has done. Guys may not know what Apoorv has done, so we'll have to wait for your talk to understand what has been your journey and stuff. Neil might want to comment on that Stanford comment that you made.
So two thoughts. Number one is, I don't think, no matter who you are, raising money is very hard. It's not something that is glamorous. You need to have a business. You need to have something real, or no one's going to give you money. It doesn't matter where you're from. I think the second piece is, I think it depends on the fundamentals of your business. If you are, if you are building the India office just to improve margins, and you're not providing sort of, massive value that can compete on the global scale, like it's going to be hard to raise money anywhere. It's definitely going to be hard to raise money in Silicon Valley, even if you were incorporated, in the US. So I don't know, Purv, if you have different thoughts about this, but I've seen a lot of companies like this, and so this is the same advice I give them. Like, focus on your business. I don't think it matters where you're incorporated. You can always change that later once you find that sort of initial success, and like that's sort of something you can change.
Okay, all right. So before we get digress too much into funding, valuation, because I think this will start getting into a different direction. Let's get back to the track, and let's get started with Approv's talk. Any questions for Neil? We will be sure to forward those questions to you. You can also see if you want to join our channels to connect with people who have more questions, because we're trying to build a better ecosystem in India, and someone like you would be a great value-adding person in the ecosystem.
Awesome. Well, very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Ready for wisdom now. We'll all learn together.
Yep. Thanks so much. All right, Apurv, we can start your talk now. You can do the same. You can introduce yourself, Squadron, and then let's get started.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Niku and Jan, the Cutshort team, and thanks, Neil. It was, in fact, I almost connected with all of the 4 learnings, so absolutely agreed with you. Perfect. So, very quickly, my name is Apurv. I was born and brought up in Delhi. I essentially run a startup called Squadron, which is incorporated in the US. We are essentially enterprise SaaS. What we do is we automate operational processes for businesses. So every business, as an example, let's say an e-commerce business like Snapdeal on a daily basis gets anywhere from 100,000 to 500,000 listings that need to get curated before it can be made live, which means you need to check that the image is following certain guidelines, the category is correct, you need to create tags. So a bunch of these basic data, digital operational processes that need to be performed. Similarly, if you've ever opened a bank account, you need to provide several documents that someone would sort of structure or check before it can be, before the account can be opened. Again, like if you are trying to build a driverless car, you need several billions of labeled training data. So there are a lot of these digital operations across different industries in the world that need to be performed, and traditionally they get done, executed using very, very large teams. What we have done, without getting too much into Squadron, is very short. We essentially leverage the best of machines and humans. So we have a platform where you can replicate any workflow, and there's a AI machine learning system that tries to solve these basic data judgments using AI systems. But whatever a machine cannot perform, we connect that to a distributed workforce of stay-at-home moms and college students who are working out of their homes across primarily India and with small pockets in Philippines and Malaysia. And they perform the work. So basically using the best of humans and machines to digitize these operational processes. We sell as an enterprise SaaS company, as I said, and some of our customers include companies like Uber, Airbnb, Teespring, Snapdeal, Flipkart, Amazon. So almost all of the large online e-commerce players in the world. Perfect. So let me just get straight to the talk. So essentially, when Nakul and I were discussing, so what we thought, let's do something similar to what Neil did, is but just focus or talk and run through the journey of building Squadron, but with a lot of focus on like key learnings or key advices we actually ignored while building Squadron, and that worked well for us. And these are probably myths. So I'll just talk through the advice and the logic behind why we skipped it and it worked well for us, and hopefully you can take away with it. Just confirming, Neil, can you guys see the screen, see the deck?
Yes.
But yes, but it is not in yet.
Sorry.
We can see the notes too.
Awesome. Perfect. So great. So essentially, the first advice that you get is, or whenever you start a startup, the first thing that you do is you have an idea and you want to validate that idea, and like the first, like this is something that I hear from so many entrepreneurs, is that you start rushing into really building a product quickly, right? Finding engineers, finding investors, finding ways to start building a prototype and start building that first version of the product, which is what is the whole process of minimum viable product to validate your idea. One of the things that actually we did differently is we did an MVP without a P. So we never really built a product. So the idea that we had, as I said, was how can I leverage a distributed workforce of people to essentially perform small jobs using their smartphone, and they would earn money for doing those jobs. And like we have a mobile app today that you can perform these jobs on, and that app is driven by a solid system that matches the right job to the right set of people and things like that. But to do the first version of that, what we did very, very quickly is just built a simple landing page, got people excited about the value proposition that you can perform small, quick jobs remotely and get paid for that, and actually just made them sign up. And everyone who signed up was added to a Google group where we would just, as notifications in a mobile app, just send them emails of different jobs, and people who wanted could email us back, and they would perform the job, and we would, rather than like having systems to check the work, we would just do it manually. So literally just like replicate everything that a product would do end to end into a very, very bad user experience for a user, but still like just replicate that process manually at our end. And it was super cheap. We were able to validate this end to end in the first 2 weeks, and learned so much that our first version of the product were really built from these learnings. So I would say, like, if you're in that stage and if you're again like ever going to validate this, I would request you to think again that, do I really need to actually even write one line of code before just validating if this problem really exists and if this is something that people will care for, and sort of validate all your assumptions there. Second is when we did validate the idea and we started building out a product, then
yeah, do you want to move your slides? Oh yeah, I was not able to see that. And do you want to put them on full screen mode or something?
Correct. Is this in full screen right now?
I don't know. I'm seeing slide layout on the right. All your. No. It's not. This is not slide. This is not full screen.
Okay, this is weird. But can you see the slide though?
Is this Google Slides or something?
No, this is Keynote. I should have actually used.
No. No, it's visible. You just need to move your slides perhaps in that case. It's not full screen though.
Correct. Let me. Is this better?
Yep.
Perfect. So second step is like when we did decide to really build out the product, then and I was so my background is that while I'm an engineer, I was in my last role, I co-founded 91 Springboard, which is the largest co-working space in India. So I moved towards business and executing sales and marketing and growth, some of those roles. So I was not the core engineer. We needed a senior technology person who could join us as a tech co-founder. And this is such a classic problem that you will hear every early stage entrepreneur, that they're looking for a tech co-founder, right? Now, one of the other issues that I saw, and in 91 Springboard also, I was friends with several early stage entrepreneurs, is that in the process of finding the right guy, you end up wasting so much time, and you sometimes would end up like as much as a year, and you would have to drop the idea. Now, there are two things about it. One is that I do agree that this is literally building a startup and the co-founders that you select is a very, very important process. More likely, you would be spending more time with this co-founder than your husband or wife. So it should really be smartly done. And you really need to get the right person. But from a from the other side, like when you want to look for a great guy, then you should know that anyone solid who can lead a technology team and has those technical chops will be getting an offer a week almost, right? So you need to differentiate yourself. So the way we did it was we actually just hired a few interns, and I had a basic understanding of programming languages. I started coding again and built a very basic broken version of the MVP myself. Wrote a blog about what we are building, how's the market, what is the team, what it is that we will get to the table, and showed the broken product to people. What happened is that a lot of my friends also started reaching out, and they got more and more curious because more than what we were solving, I think the broken product really sort of made them excited. Oh, this is cool. Let me just start fixing it, and let me just start getting involved. And that helped us get really good application, and finally we were able to get the right guy. So you need to, I think, show your own proof point if you are solving this problem. Well, raising capital again is a very, very large topic in itself. I would just say that just don't raise capital first. I mean, we all say it's so stupid, but everyone does still do that. That we almost like every company in 2015 probably raised capital because everyone else was, right. And if you don't, and I remember like so many of my team members asked me last year also that why are we not raising? Everyone that we hear is raising 10, 15, 20, $100 million, and why are we not raising capital? So I think you need to really think hard about it, right? You're giving certain percentage of your company to people who would be owning that company at a small percentage. This is like essentially getting partners, almost equivalent to getting co-founders. So I think this is a very, very hard decision, and we need to think very strongly about why, who is this person, how will they be able to add value beyond the capital. So like in our example, we have been able, we've done our classic like first angel round when we were just on an idea stage, and we've just closed our Series A round, and both were not in 2015. And when we did this current round, we were actually properly profitable as a startup. We did like overall 3 times more revenue than what we had raised till now, and that really helped our story because we didn't really need capital for sustainability. We just needed capital for massive growth, and that's a story that every investor buys anywhere in the world, and we got lucky to get some really great people. Another thing is, I think quickly on the who also matters very, very strongly. This is another myth that that you would hear this advice from very senior people that, you know, end of the day, money is money. Just like take it quickly and close it. I would say I think you should think slightly harder about it at every stage almost, because if you do this right, then you can actually get an amazing, incredible set of partners who could help you build and scale your business. So in our example, we were able to literally, like the way you hire, we were able to put together a list of people that we needed, or a list of experts we needed to scale the business. So we needed an expert in product. So we got Amit Ranjan, who was the founder of SlideShare, or we needed experts in who can help us understand fundraising. So we got like very senior startup founders, etc. So even in this round, we did the same thing. I think like if you can strategically get people or entities who can help you scale your business, this is like doing this right could be very, very valuable for your journey. Next is focus on, well, yeah. So I mean, this is again a classic advice that just grow, and this is something that Valley has also suffered. That you know, just keep growing and then forget economics. And I mean, forget economics is still probably okay for short term, but don't ever forget unit economics at least. Now, this is you should definitely keep growing. There are different types of businesses in the world where revenue can come at a later stage, etc. It's all fine, but I think as early as possible, I personally believe that as a startup, making money somehow has become very non-sexy, which is very weird, right? As a startup, end of the day, we are still a business, and as a business, you are supposed to go and generate revenue, generate profits, understand your economics deeply, try to get out of the fundraising cycle as quickly as possible, and generate so much cash that you can actually fund growth of your business from that cash. So I think having these business principles would really, really help. One example of this is that we all know Facebook was one of the best startups ever right from the beginning in terms of all the metrics. And everyone knew that user metrics were insane. That's why they were very, very hot. And in the way they raised their rounds. But one thing that we didn't know is that when they did their Series A, they actually had a revenue of $6 million. And in every round, if you see the revenue line, it's insane. And even in Series B, Series C, none of the consumer startups, I think, after that would even have that kind of revenue lines. So I would say, like, essentially, this is really, really important. And from personal experience, it helped us also. And this is slightly more relevant to a smaller section of startups, which are more probably relevant from a global market or US market perspective. We are an enterprise company, so for us, and eventually US was a key market. This is so you will always get an advice that you should really have an amazingly incredible, stable, and scalable product. It should look as sexy as how Freshdesk or Browser Stack looks before, or your website needs to, like, have all of these things before you go to the US market. Because if you go and if the first customer that works with you doesn't find your website or product demo sexy enough, then somehow you'll be blacklisted from US. It is completely bullshit. I think that it's the same principles as anywhere else, that if you're an early stage startup, it's always better to start experimenting as soon as possible. But the key important point to still note here is that selling in the US is extremely expensive, because any channel that you would use is going to be at least 5 to 10 times more expensive than India, any effort that you do. And word of the mouth is still a very important factor to consider. So if you are really messing up with your first 5 customers, then you should definitely take a step back. But the other mistake which many businesses in India have done is that they have waited way too long to start selling in the US when it's too late. Yeah, this is again, so a lot of you might connect with me that there are you're essentially at a certain stage in your business where on a daily basis you need to hire for certain positions. If you don't, then you might just die, and your team is overworked, and there are just certain pieces of certain roles that need to be filled like yesterday, and you're still like trying today. And it's very easy to slip there and or compromise on your basic hiring standards or processes or your culture. I think, like, I would strongly say not to do that. And we have, I think this is something I'm proud of, that we've maintained this discipline. A quick anecdote here is that Airbnb took almost 14 months, I think, to hire their first engineer. And it sounds ridiculous because your investors will pressurize you that what are you guys doing? Like, how you even good quality founders that if you cannot hire decent talent in your company? So everyone will pressurize you to like move very fast. But I would say that it's okay to wait as much as it takes, but don't compromise on your hiring standards or your framework. In fact, I think we have been very extreme on that. We actually have a very extensive hiring framework. We are now putting together a hiring process document. At every role we define a persona. We understand exactly what are the steps that we need to take, what are the interviews, activities, etc., that we need to do, and what is the evaluation framework, so that we can make the whole hiring process almost mathematical, to essentially help us make sure that we are following the standards that we need to. This is this is not worded in the best way possible, but I wanted to put up this point, and this is something that links to the question that was asked to Neil, that what's the difference, like what are the differences between Valley and India? And I think one of the things that at least I noticed, and I was just there in the last 4 months spending time and learning, is a mistake of focus. I think one of the things that Valley startups do extremely well is that they focus very strongly on very, very small things and scale from there. And in India, I think as Indian startups, we are super hardworking, we are super ambitious. So we want to take over the world on day one. And we want to like start solving the problem for every customer segment, every size of customer possible. And we spread ourselves too thin, and that doesn't help us at all. So I think and usually a startup journey is like a funnel, right? When you start in the beginning, when you're experimenting, you're trying to understand, is the problem large enough? So that's fine to like talk to everyone possible. But once you have really zeroed down on what you want to do, and when you're trying to build that initial engine that will scale, you should really figure out a small circle and just stick to that and really, really scale well there, and use those engines to then scale across and go beyond all of your boundaries, right? But I think that mid step to draw that circle and focus and build for that is extremely important. And so focus as much as possible. Perfect. So this is what I had. I'm happy to take questions or elaborate on any point.
So there's one question, Apoorv, about your pivot. The question is, how did you go about pivoting, and what were the key actions that you took to help you to thrive after pivoting?
Right. So, super quick background. So I think with the pivot mentioned is that when we started, we were using distributed workforce for offline data collection, which means like go to a mall, click a photo, delivery, things like that. And now we've scaled to actually solving only digital problems. I would say, interestingly, we actually never thought of it as a pivot ourselves. So we were just trying to understand the problem more and more deeply, trying to experiment as much as possible in the first 6 months, and naturally we just started seeing that data is saying like based on data, it's much better to scale in digital processes. It's much better to from a demand market global scale perspective, it's much more interesting to solve this problem. So we just sort of went with that. And I think at a later stage, we realized, looking back, oh, we actually just sort of like completely pivoted. So I think it's a normal like startup journey that you just look at data, different decisions, and just like go with that.
Yeah, I think I might add a point there. I mean, I think Apoorv was right in that way. Our experience also has been similar. When we say pivot, we don't. I mean, at Cutshort, we have never done a quick or maybe a long drawn meeting with 5 people in the room that we want to pivot today. Let's make a strategy and let's make things happen. We just did what we thought would make us best. So we realize that this is not working. Your data is telling you, your customers are telling you, your users are telling you, users are saying, it was good, but was not great. That's a signal that it is not working out. And, that's how you realize there's a problem. Now, how do you solve the problem? Again, the data and the users and your experiments will tell you what might be a better way. And you try out 5 or 6 of those ways, and one of them will work out. And then you will, after a few weeks, you will say, hey, we pivoted. And that's when you will realize that you have pivoted, because it might not happen very consciously. It may happen very, very at a very, subconscious level, and you might be just taking the right way, and then you end up pivoting. Neil, you want to add something to it?
No, I think you guys got that one covered. Want to move to another question?
Okay, so I think it's time, and Neil also has to go, so we will need to stop here about the Hangouts. The event will continue, so you guys can continue to connect with the attendees. Neil and Apoorv, thank you so much for your time today. I'm sure this was just this was a very crisp talk, great points you guys covered, and I think it should be very useful to the attendees here. But I'm sure they will be hungry for more. So we would love to have you back on Cutshort, or maybe in our channels where you can, still engage with them and then help them out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah. The one question, and this is from my team. So Neha is asking Neil. The question is why, after doing all those things you did in the Valley, what led you to join BrowserStack?
It's a really interesting thing. Essentially, figure out what to do. So I told you that we picked up an echo. Can you hear me?
Not quite. You're breaking up.
I'm not sure what changed.
Okay, you can try again.
Sure. What I would say is after you sort of your personal beliefs there, and the lessons that you learned over time, try to find a group of people, that feel the same way, that understand sort of all of the key parts. And for BrowserStack, for me, it was a pretty easy decision. Ritesh and Nakul, the two founders, and I are completely aligned on these 4 things. And also, I don't know how many of you know the BrowserStack story, but it's pretty incredible. The company has 35,000 customers worldwide. It's been growing 100% year over year. We have amazing people. It's just it's a very exciting place, and it's a very global company. So, it was for me once I figured out that story, and also you figure out sort of how much people love the product. So just in case people don't know, we make a testing platform where the idea is basically no matter what type of test you want to run, automated, manual, UI, whatever, you run it on BrowserStack. And sort of the crazy thing for me is just how strong. So Apoorv was talking about this. You got to make something that people love to start. And it's funny when you look on Twitter for BrowserStack, you see people saying, "I love my testing tool," which is something that I never thought I would see, or it's probably pretty uncommon. And so that sort of product love and product market fit, it's the equivalent of something like a Dropbox or something. It's hard to find.
Yep, that answers the question. So thanks, Neil, and thanks, Apoorv, for your time. We'll stop the Hangouts now, and we would love to be in touch, and wish you all the best, and have a good day.
My last point on that is, of course, we're hiring. Just gotta
I'm sure someone from your team is there on the events also, right? And we just ask them to come. Dhare is here? Okay, Dhare is there, okay. All right, Apoorv, and guys, thanks so much.
Take care.